What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Hustling Sideways podcast. I'm Alan Halas. I'm a music writer.
And I'm Jim Love, and I'm a keynote and motivational speaker, and we're back.
And we are back. This is the Hustling Sideways podcast. We are virtual today because it's very cold in Milwaukee. It is still very cold. There's snow on the ground. Hopefully by the time that you guys see this, the snow will maybe have at least melted a little. Jim, I don't know how you're feeling out there.
Dude, there might be snow on the ground until June in Milwaukee at this point. It is cold as hell outside, and
Yeah.
it was negative 27 last week. That was a personal record that I've never seen before. So yeah, great time to have an infant that you can't bring outside. So that's been a blast. And
Yeah.
my dog, when we take him for a walk, he's like, "What are we doing? It's time to go home." So it's been indoor sports weather in Milwaukee to say at least.
Very much so. I have to take my little dog out for his walk, but he's like unfazed by the cold.
Oh,
He's
that's
just like
awesome.
35 pounds of like terror. He's ready to go. Except for the day that it was like negative 20 something. He went to the end of our driveway, and then he looked back at me and sprinted back to our stairs. I was like, nope, not today. So that's how you know when it's really cold, when the dog just is like, nah, I'll just pee indoors.
The dog's a dead giveaway, no doubt. But all that said, we've got people to join us today, so I'm excited for that.
Yes.
It's 72 and sunny in this house, and we're going to keep that vibe going.
Oh yeah. I didn't even tell you my furnace went out too last week.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's right. Yeah,
it's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough about the cold. Let's think warm thoughts. Let's think about great things. Let's think about keeping busy. Specifically, let's think about being busy bees, Jim, because today we have the founder of Busy Bee Advisors. We also have the creator of the 1 Hour Bookkeeper. We've got Melissa Broughton on the show with us. Melissa, welcome. Hello.
Guys. I'm excited to be here. So it is a nice 58 degrees in California today, in Sacramento.
Wow.
So I'll send warmth your ways. I've got lots of family in the Milwaukee area and the Chicago area. And I looked at the weather yesterday afternoon, and it was like 17 degrees in Milwaukee. Feels like one. And I'm thinking, that's rough.
Yeah, that's where, like, when you look at your weather app and it tells you a temperature, you got to look at what it feels like, because it's 20 degrees of difference. It's wild, but I'm glad you're cozy and comfortable.
I am cozy. I have a sweater on. It's a little chilly, but
right.
I'll survive.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like last week the feels like temperature just sent me the middle finger emoji, and that was it. That's what
it was awful.
Over here.
One of those.
Yeah.
No doubt.
So I'm super excited to be here. Sorry I had to jump in on the banter. It feels like college with my roommates a little bit, talking to you guys. So.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
we met in college. So that
We
works
did.
out, so
Yes, we were young little lads, and look at us now.
Look at
I know.
you guys now. So.
Melissa, tell us a little bit about your background and kind of, I guess, what brought you to sunny California, or were you always there? And just a little bit, your history. Yeah.
My history. So I've been a Californian since 1991. My mom packed us up and said, I've had enough with Chicago, and moved us to Davis, California, which was a big change to go from Chicago to Davis, but that was where I grew up. I left for a bit to go back to school in Chicago, college, and then came back home, and have been in Sacramento ever since. So pretty much a Californian more of my life than like Chicagoan, or however you'd say that. But still love going back to Chicago. But my story's kind of, I don't know, I guess it's interesting. I knew pretty early on, I knew in high school that I wanted to go into accounting and business. Went to school for accounting. It all just very much fit with kind of my brain and how I process things. I liked the, numbers telling the story for a business, and I liked that I could be the interpreter of those numbers for my clients. And I, out of college, worked for a few larger companies. In the midst of all of that, got married, had 2 amazing boys. And then my oldest was a sophomore in high school, and I just remember looking at him and thinking, I remember when he was born that somebody had said to me, you have 18 summers. Like, that's what you get when your kids are born. And I'm looking at my sophomore and I'm like, I've got 2 summers left. Like, what the heck am I doing? I loved my job. I didn't necessarily love my hour and 20-minute commute I had each way. I enjoyed my coworkers. So it became kind of a tough, and my family needed the income that I brought in. My husband had just graduated from college for, that second career thing that we now get to, that we now all seem to get to go through. And so, it wasn't an option for me to be like, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to find myself, I'm just going to stay home with the kids. And unfortunately, I got in a little bit of an argument with my boss while my husband and I were on vacation, and I quit my job on the spot. And so then it was like okay, what is the plan to replace the 6-figure income that I was bringing in? And when I say he had just graduated from college, he had just gone back to school to become a nurse and was just getting started in his career. So yeah, nurses can make really good money, but we were not at that place yet. We were at the place of like, okay, you quit your job now, we got to figure out what's next. So we had enough in savings for me to like enjoy the rest of the summer with our kids. So had just kind of the best summer ever, just spending time with both of my boys. And then summer was over and dropped them both off at school. And this is where I think the story gets quite entertaining. So I'm like, I'm going to go for a run and I'm going to kind of sort things out in my head. Now, I'm not a super athletic person, so I think the reason why running helps me to clear my head is because it's just so freaking hard. And so I head out like Jim, you look like you could be a runner. Just saying. Me, I'm not really a runner, and this kind of proved it even more. So I'm 2.5 miles from my house, and my foot hit like an uneven part of the pavement that was on the sidewalk. Now, ironically, I was running on the sidewalk, so I didn't get run over by a car. My foot hits, and I do a total face dive, and the spoiler alert, the reaction where you're supposed to have you put your hands out, like I didn't put my hands out at all, and I straight over, and so I broke my jaw. I shattered every single tooth in my mouth except for my top and bottom 4, and I was like, it was So about 6 months of dental visits and all of that stuff before I felt like I was even back to a place of normal. I mean, my jaw was wired for a point, 19 root canals. Like it was a mess. And so at the time that I was able to get back to work, so to speak, where I felt like I could actually talk and, and communicate and all of that stuff, we were really at this, point of like the alarm bells are going off of we are swiftly and quickly going to run out of money. So, my husband and I sat down and he's like, we've got about 3 weeks before we either need to start calling family members and being like, hey, remember when I borrowed money from you in college and I paid you back? Can I borrow some money again? Or you need to get a job. And, I said, okay, so here's my plan. I'm going to give myself 2 weeks because I think I can do bookkeeping on the side, and that would like solve so many things. I'd be able to be home with the boys. I could be super involved. I even, I'll be so happy all the time. You'll come home every night from work and dinner will be ready. And he's like, okay, if that's what you want. But like week 3, you have to put some applications out. So by day 11, like nothing had happened. And so the, end of the 11th day, I'm really starting to question myself. And, I just remember that day 12, I got a message from somebody on Facebook, which was kind of random because I'm not super big into social media. A message from a friend of a friend's. It was like this connection, kind of that social idea. And he owned a company that was really this perfect fit for what I was looking for as a remote bookkeeper. He didn't have an office space. He was transitioning from being completely remote in his work to moving into an office, but his office was being built. And he knew when he built his office that he would be hiring staff, but he just needed somebody in the interim. So originally, our agreement was supposed to be for like 3 months, and it turned into, because if you've ever built anything, you know it definitely doesn't go on a perfect timeline, right? So it turned into about 9.5 months that I was able to be of service to him. But what that allowed me to do is I got that first client, which was, it was a $5,000 a month client, which was fabulous. And I was able to use that to take that time to really be active and, I'll say, aggressive about building my business. So that's kind of the backstory. What transitioned from there was kind of crazy. You know, we had this whole COVID thing that happened. Now, my husband was a nurse at that time. His career was definitely going well. He was at that point in upper management, so we had the regular hours and stuff like that. But he would still get called in, like, to work on holidays if they were short-staffed. So right before the pandemic started in like February of whatever year it started in. Right before the pandemic, I really wanted to go out with some friends for New Year's Eve. So I approached my husband and I'm like, and he loves me very much. We'll just say this. And, you know, he's like, I'm married to the best guy in the world. I said, so here's what I think. I think you should quit your job, and I think you should come and work with me, and I think you should go back to school, and I think you should learn how to do taxes. And he's like, okay. And so he took the jump with me. So in 2018, you know, without even knowing that our country would go and the whole world would kind of go crazy, he was out of harm's way. He was, you know, working to help build this business that I had started back in 2016. So we truly are a family business. My son, that boy that was a sophomore in high school, that was the reason why I started Busy Bee Advisors, went on to go into the Marine Corps. He was injured in the line of duty and medically retired. And what started to happen was he started to reach out to me through kind of the process of his service and through the process of his recovery. And he's like, hey, I have this friend that needs a job, or I have this friend's wife who needs a job, or I have this, you know, person who needs to make some extra money, because we were always looking for new bookkeepers. It's just kind of the nature of the business. You know, some bookkeepers will have that will stay with us for 5 or 6 years. Some will stay with us for a year, and then they decide they, you know, want to start their own firm. And there were a lot of different things that I was doing to support them in starting their own firm. I never felt like, oh, you know, I'm scared you're going to take my clients, or, oh, I have never had a limiting belief. So we had some processes in place, because it gets kind of boring to repeat the same stuff over and over again. So I kind of put some processes in place that I would send with them when they were starting their own businesses. And then I had processes in place for bringing on new bookkeepers and training them. And one of the bookkeepers who had been with me and then left to start her own firm came back to me, and she said, hey, I have a couple friends who want to start their own bookkeeping businesses, and I was wondering if you would train them. And I went, yeah, you know, sure. And she said, but you need to charge them. You can't just turn over training and do it for free. And I was like, that's kind of an interesting idea. So I put the training together. I think I charged them like $100 to do the training. Like, I just didn't really know. I didn't understand the value of what I was providing. And they went on and they told some people, and then some other people told some people. And we officially, in August of 2024, launched the 1 Hour Bookkeeper. Within a year, we had over 3,500 students that went through our courses. So it's pretty amazing. So I am now, I would say, I'm incredibly passionate to be a coach to bookkeepers and to help stay-at-home moms, dads, and military spouses, and really anybody who wants to learn how they can live the laptop lifestyle. Somebody told me that on an earlier podcast I was on. How they can, you know, have some flexibility and have some choices in their lives and not feel like they're limited by, you know, time constraints of jobs or the income constraints that maybe their current job is providing them with. So that's about me. I love it, Alan. You're like, okay, where do we go from here?
That was perfect.
Well, no, I my first thought was just being able to, like, always have an interest or a natural ability for accounting. As somebody that has terrible with math and numbers.
Same.
Like that's even in my like bios for things that like I'm bad at math. That is my like defining thing. So I'm like right away I'm like there's a polar opposite here. But I think the combination though of being in that point of like, okay, what do we do? Like you know, you had left your job and then this accident happens and now you're literally at like probably an all-time low, let's say, and
it was
just
rough.
the necessity. Yeah, just the necessity of being able to build back from that into a successful business that like totally just threw you in a whole different direction. Is just astounding, you know, to see that.
Yeah.
When you were building this as a business, did you already have like a brand in mind, or were you kind of like, okay, well, I got this one client, now I can make this my thing?
So everything kind of became backfilling, right? There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of like gurus or whatever, you know, people out there, consultants out there that will say, you know, when you're starting a business, you have to have a business plan and you have to have your foundation in place and you have to do this and you have to do that. And I was in the position of I needed to make money. So the brand is great. I'll figure out what I'm going to name my company and figure out all this stuff. But I literally remember like calling a girlfriend of mine after I had gotten that first client, and she was a graphic designer and, you know, designed websites, and calling her and being like, hey, Tanya, I think I need a logo and some business cards and a website. And, you know, so she's going, what do you want to name your company? I'm like, I don't know, you know, and so Busy Bee came from Melissa. The Greek meaning of my name is little honeybee. So I thought honeybee was a little too cutesy. And, you know, we really went for it with Busy Bee, but, you know, Busy Bee Advisors. And truly, when I started our bookkeeping firm, you know, the come to Jesus talk that my husband and I had, he goes, look, here's, you know, to maintain our household kind of a thing, between my pay and, you know, what our bills are and what we can cut back on, I just need you to bring in $2,000 a month. So my original income goal was $2,000 a month. Well, I blew that out of the water with my first client. So I took everything above like that $2,000 a month and what I needed for overhead, which was super minimal. I mean, that's kind of the magic of running a bookkeeping business. Like there's no overhead. I didn't have staff that I was paying. I didn't have, you know, a lease that I was paying. And everything else I just reinvested back into the business. So by month 2, I did hire a part-time administrative assistant, and then she quickly moved to full-time. Our second month in business, we were bringing in $25,000 a month.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's a big jump.
Yeah, it was a huge jump, you know, and I think that for all of your, you know, all of your listeners out there that are doing the hustle, if you've got that hustle in you and you just kind of get pointed and get aligned with something that feels like it resonates with you, you truly are unstoppable. And I will say I talk to a lot of people, not that I'm trying to turn you into a bookkeeper, Alan, but I talk to a lot of people that are like, I'm bad at math. I don't think I can do this. You know, I would say if you can read and follow a recipe and you can kind of follow step-by-step instructions, that you truly could become, a bookkeeper. And
well, I have bad news for you about my cooking skills too.
No,
So, and I'm sure that part of that has to do with reading a recipe.
There you go. I'm curious, like this obviously had a bit of pressure attached to it at first because you needed to make money. Like you guys were in a tough place, and that was the reality. When did it like switch from being, oh my gosh, we have to do this, to being more fun? Like when did it happen when it became like, okay, I'm not as worried about that part. Now I'm like enjoying, like, you know, this whole thing. I have to imagine that would have happened. And did you feel that way, like where it stopped becoming like dreadful that this needs to happen because of monthly bills, and into, oh, this is actually a passion I really enjoy?
Well, so the numbers side of things, unlike Alan, I love numbers.
Yeah.
And so to me it felt like, can this really be like Pinch Me, is this real? You know, I got that first client. We've always been savers, so it really wasn't like, it wasn't super bad, but it was, I'll say this. So my husband is the type of guy, and it drives me a little bit crazy, but he refuses to be late for things. Now, I appreciate that. But so when he puts things on our family calendar, he adds in like a half an hour of cushioning time so that we're never late, right?
It's a great idea.
So he had
Yeah.
like, there were safeties in control in place. Like we had, we had savings, and then we had maybe backup savings. But I still trusted when he said we're getting close to it, as I've got, 2 weeks to make this happen. You're telling me I have 3 weeks. Okay, I'm going to give myself 2 weeks. If it doesn't happen in 2 weeks, then I'm going to put my resume out there. Just because of my background, it's always been pretty easy for me to find a position. The accounting space, there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah.
So I wasn't concerned about that, but I knew that if I went to work for another company, it would just end up being more of the same. And, the characters in the movie, so to speak, would change, but the storyline would be the same. And so I used that fear as a motivator. I used it as a, what happens if you don't quit? What happens if you don't give up? What do I need to do? And, I went to every networking group I could find. I went to I reached out to everybody that was kind of within my universe at the time of people that I knew that were maybe business owners. And I got a lot of no's. I got a lot of no's.
Yeah.
I had a lot of people who were like, oh no, I have somebody who does it, or I do it myself. And what happened was, as soon as I got that first client, my attitude changed, right? There wasn't that feeling of, even though I was super excited about this new venture, of course there was that thought of, what if it doesn't work? What if I disappoint my husband? What if my kids have just seen me take this chance and I fail? I felt all of that, and all of that shifted when I got my first client. And then it was interesting because a lot of those people that I had reached out to prior to landing my first client, they kind of, woke up, decided that they needed my services. And so then it just kind of became, I had one, and then we landed I think if I looked back at it, I think we had 11 new clients come in my first month in business.
Wow.
And so I'm now backfilling the operations and how does this flow and how do I manage all of these things. And so it was, I remember actually going to a girlfriend of mine from high school. I showed up at her job, and I'm like, hey, how much do you make here per hour? And this is, of course, before, minimum wage went up. And she's like, well, I make $12 an hour. And I knew she didn't really love her job. And I said, okay, so I'll pay you $15 an hour part-time if you come and work with me. And we're talking about come and work with me at my house, at my dining room table.
Step into my dining room.
And she went, okay. And so she quit her job. And that's when I really felt, I would say, more of the pressure, when I had other people that their livelihoods were dependent on me. I mean, she did take a little bit of a pay cut, even though the hourly wage was more. She went from full-time to part-time. So I wanted to get her time as quickly as possible. Yeah, we did that a month after she started, and she worked with me for 7 years, and that was amazing. Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, who gets to say they get to work with their best friends?
Oh, that's the best. Yeah, no doubt. When finding clients, is there any level of value alignment that you need, or anyone that maybe doesn't fit with what you're looking for? Or are you has that ever happened to you where someone's like, this is not a good fit?
So one of the things, when you go to school, when you go to college for accounting, they really drill in that you learn about government accounting, so accounting on a huge scale, and you learn about accounting for large corporations.
Yeah.
And I think when a lot of people think about bookkeepers and accountants, they think that they only serve these large companies, right? And what we saw, or what I saw, was that there was a need in the market for the companies that are, doing less than $2 million a year in revenue. There's a lot of companies out there that do less than $2 million a year in revenue. And then I thought, okay, so let's tighten it up a little bit even more. Let's say that they have 5 or fewer employees, because what I started to notice was that if they had more than 5 employees, they generally had a payroll person and an accounting person on staff. So that wasn't a good fit for me. So my avatar, if you will, because that's I think still a hot word that they use, was any business out there that did $2 million or less in revenue and had 5 or fewer employees. Now I tightened it up a little bit even more, because I knew that I wanted to work only within QuickBooks Online. So they either had to be in QuickBooks Online, or they had to be willing to switch over to QuickBooks Online. And what that gave me to start with was, it allowed me to focus who I wanted to connect with as clients. And I will say, from the hustler's perspective, there is nothing still that will beat the, getting out there and handing out as many business cards as you can, getting out there and going to many, as many networking events as you can. I mean, that's absolute magic. We, in the course, in my my base level course is called Novice to Numbers Ninja. In the base level course that I offer, we teach a little bit of a different approach, because what I found was that a lot of the students, a lot of those moms that were attracted to starting something from home, well, they were moms. They had little people, and going out to a networking event, or saying, okay, well, now you have to hire a babysitter so that you can go to this networking event. It kind of became counterintuitive for what they were trying to accomplish. And so we knew that we had to figure out a way to be able to guide them to not have to truly leave their seats of their computers, to be able to have the flexibility to be there for their kids, to still be able to have their life come first and not their job come first. And I worked with 3 different sales professionals, all in kind of different types of businesses, to put together a plan for for prospecting and for how they can gain as many as about, I would say, 5 clients is our average for the 12-week program. So
that's awesome. So that's a lot of people that come in within that time. I do want to jump back to one thing that you said too, about like when you got that first client and that feeling of that. I think everybody that has a business of any sort runs into that feeling of like wanting to feel validated, right? Where like, you were like, at this point, like, I hope that this works. I know what I can do. I feel good. You felt confident about what you could do. But then when you have that first paying client, and especially a high paying client that's going to, hit your financial mark plus then some, on top of it, that had to have been a huge moment of feeling like, okay, I can do this. And I have evidence now that I can do it, because it's there. You can see that. When it came to teaching people and having this course that you have, when does that feel validation for you too? Because I know, like you said, you brought those first couple people on and taught them. But when did you kind of feel like, okay, I can turn that into a product that is another line of revenue for me?
So I believe in researching before starting something. I definitely have lots of ideas all the time, and if I followed all of those ideas, I would probably just end up going in a big circle. So I try to validate ideas that I have, and one of the things that I did, because I knew the first question, or what I anticipated as the first question I would get, is why should I choose you to be my bookkeeper versus somebody else out there? And so I surveyed, I think 120 different bookkeepers across the country. And turns out we're a pretty friendly bunch if you want to ask us about what we do and how we do what we do. And I came up with kind of it's a top 10 list of the mistakes that I saw that they were making. and how could I do it differently? How could I be better? How could I deliver something and have a better value for my clients? How could I deliver something and be able to, work with more than 3 clients at a time? How could this really be a career where I could get to the point of making the 6 figures that I was making when I was in corporate America? Like, how could I get back to that? And so what I quickly discovered was that it's all about a process. It's all about creating a process and repeating that process with each client. As far as validation with my students, I treat every single person that becomes a student, and my team does the same, as if they're a friend that I'm having a conversation with, and I really approach things from, is this what's in their best interest? So, we have this kind of, it's called Bookkeeper in a Box. I let my team name it. It's kind of a little bit of a cringy name, but it makes me laugh a little bit.
I like
and
it.
That's like our big program. And so with that program, we will actually, we do everything for you. So we get your first 10 clients for you. We set up all of your processes. We do everything. It kind of becomes this, you just have to show up at work and be willing to do the work. And then we support you through that work for a year, right? So as you can imagine, with something like that, it has a pretty hefty price tag, or I think it's a reasonable price tag, but it's expensive. And I had a young lady that reached out to me, and I was on the phone with her, and she's like, okay, well, this is the program I want. Okay, so tell me a little bit about you, because I want to make sure it's a good fit for you. Well, she's ready to have a baby in about 6 weeks, and it's like, and the dots go, and I said, look, I am certainly not trying to talk you out of something. You know your situation better than I do, but I also know what it's like to be a brand new mom and have a new baby. And your head for about 6 months is going to be in baby zone. And so for you to be trying to jump into something right now, that you'll just end up having to start it over again in 6 months. And I said, it's just something for you, to consider. And I have found that I've approached it with every single student that I've talked to. And, sometimes people get frustrated with me because they just want to jump in and start it. But then they end up coming back and saying, hey, I really appreciate it. So I treat everybody as if they were my, my mom, or how I would want my son to be treated, or how I would want, my cousin to be treated, or my aunt, like people that I care about and people that I love. That's the approach that I take. And I feel like if we take that approach, that the success follows. If we help somebody else to achieve what they need and what they want, the success just naturally follows. And it's a wonderful life that I get to live. It's so gratifying. I love when I get to talk to my students. Like, I never thought seeing somebody else's success would make me as excited as it does, but it's just about the best feeling in the world. So
yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's very big of you too, to say, look, this might not be for you right now, right? Like, so many people would just be like, I see dollar signs, making a sale, like, I will take that, and you're going to need that in 6 months again, well, we'll have to pay for that again,
right?
Like that's big to see the human side of things too. So you have both these businesses, both of these lines of income.
Oh no, they're both businesses. You said it just right. And some days I can't even remember, why I walked up to the washing machine.
Yeah. Where do you see this going, and where do you kind of want to take things, and down the line in the next couple of years?
So we've got some, we, on the personal side of things for our family, have some exciting things going on. My youngest son is a senior in high school, so he's like choosing what college he's going to go play football for. Because our business is not really, it doesn't force us to be stuck in California. We're most likely going to be the parents that follow him wherever he goes to college, within a reasonable distance, of course. But one of the reasons why my husband left nursing was so that he never had to miss a football game, and I'm still committed to that. So it's a lot easier to make all of those college football games if you're closer. So
right.
We'll be, picking up this business from California and moving it to wherever we go. My whole team is completely remote. That's kind of always been the plan for the team. I mean, if I didn't want to do a commute for somebody else, I didn't necessarily want to commute to an office if I had the choice. We did have a commercial space for about 5 years, but through the pandemic, our landlords actually ended up buying us out of that lease. So we're home based. So as far as the future, I mean, I'd love to hire on some additional coaches to work with students. I think that's the most gratifying work out there. I think to be able to show people that they have a choice is so, it's so amazing, and that they can still have autonomy in their, in their work and in their lives, that they can still live the gig lifestyle, because I definitely see the appeal of that. But they can actually make, not only a living wage, but a wage where they can live a comfortable lifestyle. That's amazing. So I really see the 1 Hour Bookkeeper continuing to grow. I'd love to be able to do 2 to 3 in-person events a week where I can actually get to meet face to face some of my students, because there are some amazing stories. I mean, there are some amazing stories of what has happened and how this has affected people's lives. And I just want to be able to sit and have a cup of coffee with them and share in their excitement. So I think the immediate is to be able to have us do in-person events. I think long term is hiring on additional coaches so that we can grow in that capacity as well. And really what creating this, I'll say, second business has done is it's allowed me to get crystal clear on processes and to make sure that I have the right support staff in place for our core company, which is Busy Bee Advisors. And so, I'm still active in the day-to-day operations, but I also know that I can't do everything. And so I've been fortunate enough to hire some really, really amazing people. And I will say the only person that I absolutely could not easily replace would be my office manager, and I try to tell her every day how much I love and appreciate her. And when she's out sick, I'm like, promise me you're not looking for another job. So
Come back.
Come back.
That's great.
I really thought you said I really thought you were going to say the person you can't replace most is your husband, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
I guess that's what I should have said. Huh? Yes.
But you know what? No, but you know what? The office manager, very important as well. Yes.
That's right.
Melissa, thank you for taking the time to sit down with us and do this. Where's the best place to find out more about both of the things that you've got going on and maybe follow you online?
Sure. So 1 Hour Bookkeeper, the number 1 Hour Bookkeeper, that's our website for the course. If you're curious about our accounting firm, it's busybeeadvisors.com. And then you can just do a search online for the 1 Hour Bookkeeper. But we've got a freebie for all of your listeners. It's kind of it's called a 3-step guide to achieving work-life balance. I think one of the things that came out of the pandemic, lots of things came out of the pandemic, but one of the things that came out of the pandemic is there are a lot of people that feel kind of discontent. They got to see this preview into working from home and having a lot of freedom and a lot of flexibility, and now they're being forced to go back to work. And in many cases, they really are becoming quickly more and more dissatisfied with this. So this guide kind of takes you through a 3-step approach to figuring out not only what you really want, but what that dollar sign is that's attached to what you really want. And then it of course presents bookkeeping as potentially something you might want to look at. And we definitely don't take a hard sell approach. So it's worth a read.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll have the link to that in the show notes for this episode, as well as on Milwaukee too, because we have our episodes there.
That's right.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, like I said, again, for doing this. We are the Hustling Sideways podcast. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. It's been a minute since we recorded one of these, Jim. I almost lost it there. We are also on all of the places, all of the social media. You can find us. Just look for Hustling Sideways. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on LinkedIn. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of those places as well. If you want to be a guest here on the show, send us an email. It is hustlingsideways@gmail.com. And Jim,
keep on hustling.
we will see you next week. Thanks.
Peace.